If you're here, it's probably because you recognize one of the men in the thumbnail of this video. So let's talk about male abuse. Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm the one they call Peachy Pie, and you are most welcome to join me here. Now I'm going to pop a trigger warning right here because we're talking about abuse and abuse-related incidents. So I would appreciate it that if you are sensitive to this, that you click off this video right now or check out some of the other stuff on my channel, or you can watch whatever the X on YouTube that tickles your fancy. But this is just seriously your trigger warning, and you can pop up right now. Okay, so let's get into it. We're reading an article by Sumpy, and the article is titled Kim Hyun-Joong wins court battle against ex-girlfriend, right? I'm reading a couple snippets. The article is from the 10th of August 2016. Previously, A sued KHJ in August 2014 for assault. When KHJ apologized, the charges were dropped, although he was still tried and fined late in January of the following year for being abusive. He was fined for beating her, okay? Let's just keep that in our minds. Later in February, A claimed she was pregnant with KHJ's child, which sparked controversy all over again. In April, A sued KHJ for 1.6 billion won in damages due to emotional stress from the miscarriage of her first pregnancy, right? 1.6 billion won is approximately $1.5 million, okay? The court ruled evidence insufficient to prove the plaintiff's claims of a second pregnancy, miscarriage from assault, and coercion of abortion. Concluding, the judge said that the evidence is insufficient to prove A's claims. Regarding the claim made by the defendant, Kim Hyun-Joong, the judge said it cannot be proved that the plaintiff threatened the defendant with taking the news of her miscarriage public during the settlement of the initial criminal case. However, the fact that A did an interview with KBS was a huge broadcasting station in South Korea, in which she gave false information with no evidence to prove her second pregnancy and miscarriage, is acknowledged as a criminal act. Considering the criminal act the day before the defendant's enlistment date, which is a military enlistment, the severe defamation and damage to the defendant's image, and severe psychological stress, the plaintiff shall give compensation in the amount of 100 million won to the defendant. Okay, so what has happened in this case is that initially there was a case against Kim Hyun-Joong for physical abuse against this particular person named Miss A. And what happened was he was found guilty in that initial case of being physically abusive. I do not see if there's mention of her being physically abusive to him. I've been checking a lot of articles and I can't really find anything. But the relationship does appear to have had some form of abuse. However, during their court case, a lot of things came out in which she wasn't entirely true about the situation or about certain instances. So there was a lot of these issues in which she told the truth partially, and then other times she just outright lied. And so that really affected her credibility as a witness for her own case. However, I do not think that a court system would rule someone guilty of doing something easily if there was not a record of that abuse in at least some way. Although there's lots of issues in which people are falsely accused and the courts get it wrong. So I could be very, very wrong there, especially in this case, and it's very sensitive. I believe that every single person on this planet is capable of abuse, and the moment we stop thinking that we are is the very moment when we are most vulnerable and most susceptible to becoming abusive to someone else. The sad thing is her accusations, her coming forth, did so much harm to him. But at the end of the day, when they found out that a lot of her allegations weren't quite true, it did so much worse harm to her and to other victims of domestic abuse. So we have a similar case here when we take a look at the situation with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. If you've been watching the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, you probably know quite a lot is happening. Amber Heard is definitely not the fan favorite in this case, but I do want to remind people to keep in mind that reactive abuse is still abuse, and unfortunately, the abuser often uses that as another tool to oppress the victim, knowing that the victim feels that their morality is in jeopardy once they act out in mutual abuse. But here we have two men in the entertainment industry who were abused by women, potentially mutually, in mutual situations of abuse. And we need to talk about it. When these two women, Amber Heard and Miss A, came forward with their allegations of abuse, let's think about what the action of the public is going to be for a second. The majority of the time, the public is going to go, oh my gosh, we need to cancel him, we need to just destroy him, destroy his career. Because people love outrage, people love sensation, they love gossip, and that's just inherently part of human nature, right? Image is everything in the entertainment industry. So when an individual comes forward and talks about the allegations of abuse against an actor, especially a male actor, that person's career now and future is already entirely in jeopardy, whether the accusation is true or not. Now, the second point that I want to make is that bias is a huge factor, especially in the entertainment industry. You know, that when accusations come out about men, we are so quick to believe it because it's so commonly perpetrated. Abuse is so commonly perpetrated by men in so many different areas. So when an accusation comes out about a male actor and people jump on this speculation and because they love the sensation of it, it's not uncommon for people to just default to believing a woman. And yet it is abundantly true that people can lie, people can want attention, people can have the wrong motivations for doing things, even if they are essentially doing the right thing. A victim of any sort of abuse that is speaking out about abuse is doing the right thing. But when your intention is to hurt someone's career, if your intention is to damage that person's opportunities and livelihood or hurt them greatly, then that's reactive abuse. That is reactive abuse. And unfortunately, the line between the two, between doing the right thing and reactive abuse, is a very, very thin, very, very small line. And you as the victim of abuse, who would feel righteous anger towards your abuser, might feel that it's right to make this decision when it shouldn't be done in that way or with those motives. Number 3 is men often cover up being abused by women. This happens too much in so many different areas, and it's extremely unfortunate that the byproduct of misogyny is that men are missing out on the opportunities to be vulnerable and to be honest with their experiences, because other men are going to make fun of them or belittle them or not take them seriously. I mean, there are times when I've heard stories of men that go to police stations to report that they were abused or raped by women, and they get laughed out of the station. They laugh at them and tell them, go home and control your woman. And it's awful, it's disgusting, and it's horrible. And we need to change that. And we start by changing the perception of abuse in society. We need to start understand that abuse can even be perpetrated by children or the elderly, and it can go in either direction, so that we can start to properly address it and heal. In the case of Johnny Depp, right, it's been alleged in court that Johnny Depp's mother was abusive to him. So if you are a victim of abuse, or you know anything about victims of abuse, they tend to go back into familiar cycles, patterns of relationships and things where they will get abused again are normal to them, because this was their reality. This is the victim's reality. This is what looks like normal. They don't draw the line at the abuse. They do not draw that line. They don't have those kind of boundaries. The audience of a man working in the industry may not trust him even when the allegations are proven false. In Amber Heard's court case, there's a lot of times where she as well tells a story or an incident which doesn't quite make sense, doesn't quite add up. The whole situation is not coming together, and it's not typical of the way that an abuse victim speaks or understands their situation or copes with their situation, right? Not to say that she wasn't abused. We can't allege that. As people that aren't professionals, we can't really allege that she has not been abused. That could very well be the case. But it could also be the case that she's projecting based on her experience with her abusive father, allegedly. She claims that her father was abusive to her growing up. And as I said before, people tend to look for abusive cycles. The industry is such that the industry just wants to replace that story as quickly as possible once it stops losing traction. And when a victim of someone who has slandered them or defamed them has come out as the victor in that particular case, it often just gets shoved under the rug, and people don't actually give justice to the perpetrator of this heinous act of revenge. Potentially could be revenge. And it's so hard to talk about these issues and to think about these issues, because we are so destined to believe in the good guy versus the bad guy. And I think that the reason we do that is because it's a reflection on ourselves. No one wants to think about themselves as the villain in a story, yet that's the reality for most people. You can become the villain, and you might even be the villain right now because of your actions, because of your words, because of your motives. You can be the villain. And it's awful to think about that. But when we start thinking about our actions, we start taking responsibility, and we realize, hey, perhaps I am the villain in the story, or acting villainously. Then we realize it's time to change. It's time to be better and do better for ourselves, because abuse is abusing yourself. So those are my thoughts on these particular issues. It makes me so sad to see that people get into relationships and things can escalate to this point, where at one point these two people were looking at each other with so much love in their eyes and love in their hearts. They're ready to dedicate their lives to each other, or at least a very long period of time, because they made each other feel wonderful initially. And now they're at this point where they can't stand the sight of each other. They would say or think, I wish this person was dead. And this person has caused me so much pain, and I've caused them so much pain. And yet now we can't move on. And that just really makes me sad. Sorry to end this on such a sad note, but if you don't want to be sad and you don't want to make me sad, consider liking and subscribing. Okay, we're going to our scripture of the day.
Unless otherwise indicated, all the following scripture quotations are taken from the Holy Bible, New Living Translation, with copyright by Tyndale House Foundation, used by permission of Tyndale House Publishers, all rights reserved.
Your scripture of the day comes from Philippians 2 verse 14 and 15, which says, do everything without complaining and arguing, so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. Alrighty tighty then, that's it from me. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and come back tomorrow so you can watch my 8 months again in real time. Thanks for being here. Have a fantastic day further, because you absolutely deserve it. Cheers.
그대 잠깐 눈을 붙일 때 나는 마음에 물을 붙여요. 비밀의 나만의 초콜릿. 그대 차가운